Okay, guys, well, it is time now to do a little review. So that's what we're going to do next. So again, in this 6 weeks, we learned some new expressions. So in this first activity, we're going to do this activity using the chat box. So everyone make sure you have the chat box, know where the chat box is. So in just a moment, what I'm going to do is show an expression, but some of the words will be missing. And what I want to do is basically use the chat box to see who can give us the missing words. And the first person who gives it to us, of course, we will put it into the answer. So again, that's the idea. No microphones. We'll just use the chat box and we'll see who can fill in the missing word the fastest. Now we're going to do this first one just as an example. So we'll do this one together and then we'll kind of go through and discuss each one real briefly. Okay guys, so are we ready? Let's go. Okay guys, here in the chat box, here comes the first one. So there are two words that are missing here. So it's go blank to the blank board. Okay, does anybody know what the first word is? Go blank to the blank board. What's the first word? Okay. All right, good guess, but no, not off. Congratulations. All right, so Kelly got it. Go back. So go back to the something board. What kind of board was it? Who can remember? Am I going to have to give a hint? All right, first letter was D. Okay, second letter was R. Okay, I'm going to keep filling in letters. A, W, well, we're going to keep going. I see everybody was sick this week. All right. All right, so Risa got it. Okay, yeah. Go back to the drawing board. This was actually one of the very first expressions we learned at the beginning of the summer. So remember, when we go back to the drawing board, it means we go back to planning again. Something doesn't work, so we go back to the drawing board and plan again. So in this case, that was that first expression, one of the first expressions we learned in the summer. So again, if we didn't remember it, it was a long time ago. So it was about 6 or so weeks. Okay, so now we got the basic idea. Let's go to the next expression. So the next expression is to go off the blank. This is one we just learned recently. Who can tell us this one? Again, use the chat box. No guesses?
I don't know how to write it.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. First letter is G. Okay, I'll keep filling in. R.
Is ground?
No. I only have one more letter, guys. There we go. To go off the grid. So this was one we learned, I think last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, to go off the grid. So remember, to go off the grid means to get away from the cell phones, to get away from the internet. Now, of course, there is an extreme interpretation, and one interpretation in the extreme means to get away from electricity. So for example, I have a link here to an article. I'm going to bring it up here on the screen. I may have mentioned this to you before, but I am obsessed with tiny homes. So I know someday I would love to live in a tiny home. But notice the title of the article says, "Curious about tiny home off-grid living?" So in this case, this is the extreme definition of living off the grid. It means you have a house and you don't actually use electricity. You don't use water inside of the house, or maybe you connect to water. But the basic idea is you plant all your food and you live in some small place. So what do you think, guys? Would you be interested in living off the grid like this? Anybody want a tiny home?
Not really.
So Kelly, this is not the house you're building? Didn't you say you want a dream house? No?
Not like that.
Doesn't look like this. Okay.
No, thank you.
Well, guys, if you want to waste, 10, 12 hours, you can go to YouTube, and let me tell you, there are hundreds of videos of people who are living off the grid like this in tiny homes. So don't be surprised, guys, if I decide to retire early and move to a tiny home. Okay. All right, here's the next one. Let's see how we do. Let's see if we have a little more success with the next one. The next one is blank on my parade. Someone remember this one? All right, congratulations, Mariana, we got it. To rain on my parade. So remember, rain on my parade means to spoil a situation, to basically ruin a situation. So again, for some of you, maybe the quarantine has ruined your travel plans. So it has rained on your parade. So in this case, we learned this expression a few weeks ago to talk about when something bad happens and we have to cancel our plans. Okay, here's the next one. This one you may not remember, but it is by blank and bounds. And I'll give you a hint. We had pictures of frogs with this one. Okay, well, good guess, Mariana, but no. Close, you're close. This one might be a hard one. I'll give you a hint. So the first letter is L. Guess what frogs do? There you go, Risa. Congratulations. By leaps and bounds. Now, if you remember this expression, we said that we often hear this used in connection to learning. So often we see this expression used with schools, especially for children. So primary, preschool. I think we even mentioned the Montessori type schools, where students can learn as fast as they want to. So by leaps and bounds means to grow in a very fast way, to improve very quickly. So again, you might use this expression to say, I don't know, Sonia, maybe you would say your Spanish is improving by leaps and bounds, or maybe not. But the idea is it needs to improve, to do something quickly and big jumps. Okay. All right, just a couple more. This is one we talked about very recently. So this one is to take blank your parents. So we were talking about generations with this one. Any guesses? Okay. All right, I'll start with the first letter, A. Okay, next letter, F. There aren't too many more letters here, guys. T. All right, so finally we get it. Okay. Yeah, to take after. So we mentioned when you take after someone, it means who do you resemble? Who do you look like? So for example, some of you said maybe you take after your mom, maybe you take after your dad. We can also use this with characteristics. So maybe you're more like your dad or more like your mom in your personality. So you might say, yeah, I take after my mom. Or maybe you take after both of them a little bit. So in this case, to take after someone means to resemble, to look like, to have the same characteristics. Okay? All right, guys, almost there. I think we got two more. What about this one? Comparing blank to blank. All right, so Risa jumped in with the first one. So the first one was apples. So what are we comparing apples to? Apples to All right, congratulations. Apples to oranges. So when we compare apples to oranges, remember, that is when we compare two things that should be similar. I mean, they're both fruit, but the truth is they're actually kind of different. So in this case, yeah, apples, different color, orange, different flavor, that kind of thing. All right. Okay, that's it. All right, so now that we've kind of reviewed a little bit, hopefully now that's kind of jogged your brain into remembering some of those expressions. The next one is going to be focusing on the meanings of the expressions. So we're going to use the poll feature for this next one. So in just a moment, I'm going to turn on the poll, but we're going to look at an example first. Now, this time it's a little different, where you're going to see the first line of a conversation. What you're going to do is have to choose the correct response to that line. So you will see the first line of the conversation and then three choices. So we're going to look at an example, and let's see if you guys can identify the answer here. Okay, so here's the first line of the conversation. And again, maybe you can identify. Looks like my trip has been canceled. Okay, now here are the sample responses. A, well, it looks like you'll have to go back to the drawing board. B, you can't compare those things. That's like apples and oranges. Or C, wow, you really take after your parents. All right, so guys, which one do you think is the answer? Is it A, B, or C? And you can use the microphone.
A.
All right, congratulations. So in this case, remember, to go back to the drawing board means you'll have to kind of start over and plan something else. So again, for some of you, that's what you have to do, right? Go back to the drawing board and try again. So in this case, when something's been canceled, we got to make other plans. Okay, so guys, that's how the activity works. So in just a moment, I'm going to turn on the poll feature, and basically you're going to do exactly what we just did. You'll see the first line of a conversation, and then you will choose which one is the correct answer. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the poll now, and we'll take about 5 minutes. You might finish before that, but we'll take about 5 minutes to do the activity. Okay, so the poll is turned on. You should be able to see it now, and I'm going to turn off my mic and camera. Good luck. Okay, guys, we're going to end time there. So most people have finished at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. So first off, it looks like most of us pretty much got the same answers. So we're going to go through real quickly and see how we did. So here we go. I'm going to go through each one real quickly and identify which one is the correct answer. So for number one, looks like 4 out of the 5 people got it correct. So let's look at the situation. It says you're really making progress in your language training. And the answer is C. So again, 4 out of 5 got that one. Yes, I'd say by leaps and bounds. So remember, when we make progress, if we make great progress, we often make progress by leaps and bounds. Okay, let's go on to this number 2. And it looks like everybody got number 2 correct. So as it says here, I know how to fix a car, so how hard could it be to fix a plane? Yeah, so those two things are really not that similar. So in this case, letter B is the correct answer, and everybody got that one. Well, that's really comparing apples to oranges. Yeah, these are not exactly the same thing, even though cars are becoming much, much, much more sophisticated. All right. Number 3, again, looks like everybody got number 3 correct. Yes, I would say there is a strong resemblance. So in this case, the answer was A. I guess you could say I take after him. So remember, to take after someone means to look like someone, to resemble them. Let's continue. So again, for number 4, it looks like everyone also got this one correct. So you didn't have to be so direct in telling me the bad news. Well, again, bad news was the key word there. So in this case, the answer was A. Sorry, I didn't mean to rain on your parade. So I didn't mean to give you that bad news and ruin your day. And then finally, number 5, which again, everyone got correct. Man, the news is just so depressing right now. Maybe you feel the same way. In this case, the answer was B. Maybe you should get off the grid for a while. Yeah, just get away from the internet, social media, and so on. Okay, well, we got those correct. So it looks like we did a pretty good job with this activity. All right, so in the second part of class, we're now going to kind of go back and review what we did for the grammar activities throughout the summer session. So again, basically each week we focus on a tricky area of grammar. So in this first activity, this is a tricky verbs activity, and each sentence has one mistake. So what I'm going to do is ask different students to read the sentence and see if they can identify the mistake in the sentence. So how about Sonia? How about you read number 1 and see if you can tell us where the mistake is?
He wishes he was the one to be chosen to be the leader.
So where do you think the mistake is? So remember, it's tricky verbs.
I thought about like he wishes he got to.
Okay, well, I'll give you a hint. You're looking at the right word. So the word is not was. This was one of the tricky things we talked about with this situation.
Where instead?
Yes, you are correct. So some of you might remember that when we were talking about tricky verbs, this is referred to as a situation called the unreal. Okay, so actually, Sonia, here's a little, this will be a little Spanish lesson for you. So in languages like Spanish, Portuguese, French, and so on, those languages have what we call an unreal mood. In fact, in Spanish, we refer to this as the subjunctive mood. Now, the subjunctive basically is when we change the situation to show that we're pretty sure this activity is not going to happen. We know it's not a real situation. So the key word here is wish. So when you wish for something, you know it's not going to happen. But you might remember that English does not have a subjunctive mood, or at least not a true subjunctive. So that's the problem. So what English does is it actually uses, if you remember, it uses some kind of strange combination of the past tense to show that unreal mood. So for example, the word wishes is going to be in just the simple present, but the next word is going to be in the simple past. But we also learned that the verb to be is kind of irregular in this case. So instead of saying was, we just use the word were for everybody. He wishes he were. They wish they were. I were. You were. So in this case, Sonia, that's the answer. Now, Sonia, you're thinking about learning Spanish. So for example, in Spanish, this particular situation, you would actually change this word to something completely different. Because in Latin languages, they have lots of different verb changes, lots of verb variations, but English does not. So guys, maybe you think learning English is difficult, but I'll tell you, as an English speaker, when I had to learn Spanish, you have to memorize all of these different, forms. The past is different from this type of, there are two different kinds of past tense. There's a subjunctive form we have to learn. So again, this makes English a little bit easier compared to some of those languages, but still, this is one tricky thing. And don't worry, guys, this is one that even English speakers make a mistake with. So if you'll notice, a lot of people don't say he wishes he were. They would say he wishes he was, because that looks to be correct. Okay? All right, very good. Okay, let's move on and try number 2. Risa, would you like to read number 2 for us and see if you can find the mistake?
Okay. The criteria for taking the test is very long and complicated.
Okay, so what do you think? Where's the mistake in this one?
I think is.
Okay, so how should we change it?
Are.
Congratulations. So the question is, what is the true subject of the sentence? So some of you might be looking at the word test and you think maybe the word test is the subject, but it is not. So Risa, what is the true subject of the sentence?
The criteria.
Yeah, so this is where remember, things get a little problematic for English. English borrows lots of words into its language. In fact, you will see that if you look at all of the vocabulary of English, most of the vocabulary of English is borrowed. We borrowed it from other languages. So for example, Latin, French, these are words we borrowed. Well, guys, criteria is one of those strange words that we borrowed from another language. So guess what? Criteria is actually the plural form. And Risa, do you know what the singular form of criteria is?
Sorry, I don't remember.
Yeah, most people don't even think about it. But believe it or not, it's actually criterion.
Criterion.
Yeah. Now, let's be honest. We don't really use criterion with an N that much. And in fact, this is one of those common mistakes that even English speakers make. They think the word criteria is a singular word, so they would make the same mistake. Now, guys, here's another example of a word that can be a little tricky. And again, this is a word we borrowed. So for example, the word data or data. Do we know this word? Has everybody heard this word before? Anybody else know this word? Have you heard it before? Yeah? Okay, so Kelly?
Yeah.
So Kelly, you answered first, so I get to pick on you. Is this singular or plural?
Plural.
Congratulations. Most people don't know that. And in fact, most English speakers would treat it as a singular word. But the truth is, the singular form of data is datum. But nobody uses that word. And in fact, now data has become so popular that most people would use it in the singular form. So it would sound kind of strange to say the data are, right? The data are telling us. So believe it or not, this is one of those situations where we have used it for so long as a singular word, most people just accept it. But again, there are a lot of these words in English that we borrowed from other languages, and we have to also borrow their singular or plural forms too. So in this case, criteria was the true subject of the sentence, and it is a plural word. So just be careful, guys. A lot of words in English we borrowed, and we borrowed their rules too. And then finally, again, in identifying the subject, we talked about in class, remember that oftentimes the noun that is closest to the verb is not always the subject of the sentence. So in this case, for taking the test, this is actually modifying the word criteria. So in this case, that can be kind of a trick as well. Okay, so Mariana, how about number 3? Why don't you read it for us and see if you can find the mistake?
Okay, number 3. There is many problems with this situation.
Okay, what do you think the mistake is?
And there is not there is it. There are many problems with
Congratulations. Yeah, now again, this is another one where English speakers make this mistake too. So remember, the word are, we call this a dummy word or a null word. So the truth is it actually has no meaning. When we just say there, the idea is we're actually referring to the true subject of the sentence. So in this case, Mariana, what is the true subject of the sentence?
Problem.
Very good. So this is one of those where even English speakers make this mistake. I often make this mistake because I'm not thinking, I'm just speaking. So I think many of us have memorized theirs, right? You probably memorize that, probably hear people say that. So often you might hear people say, there's many problems. There's many problems. Okay, so again, in real life, maybe people make that mistake. But again, we should say there are many problems because problems is the subject of the sentence. Okay, very good. Let's continue. Hey, Frank, you want to try number 4?
Okay. Has he?
Yeah, okay, so there you go. So the ending is what we need to do. So yeah, we need to switch the two. Yeah, so very good, Frank. Yeah, so this is, again, if you remember, this is called a tag question. And tag questions, we have 2 things to remember. Number 1, we use the helping word in the sentence, and the helping word is going to be in the opposite state. It's not, so for example, if it's in the negative form in the main part of the sentence, it's going to be in the affirmative in the tag. And then the second thing we have to remember is that we have to switch the words. So again, one problem we talked about with English is that sometimes we switch the order of words. So in this case, Frank, you're correct. We just switch the 2. Okay? All right, finally. All right, Kelly, you get to do number 5.
We'd like going to the store now.
So what do you think? Where's the mistake? Maybe,
I guess we.
maybe you can ask your bird friend there to help you. No, weed is okay.
Is there missing the word maybe?
Well, you're getting closer. Something needs to change.
We'd like to go
There you
to
go.
the store now.
Yeah, so if you remember, guys, we were talking about gerunds and infinitives. So sometimes we can use both. Sometimes we can use only one or the other. So one problem is that there's a difference between would like, which is this sentence. So when we use would like, we should say to go. But if we just use the word like, so for example, we like, then you could use both. So you could say we like to go or we like going to the store. But remember, in this case, when I use the phrase would like, so Kelly, you were correct. Something was missing, and that was the to, the infinitive. Now, guys, once again, I have seen for many of you, we're still struggling with gerunds and infinitives. I can see it in the activities. I can see when we're talking. There is no easy solution. You just have to practice with them. You have to memorize which ones use gerunds, which one uses infinitives, and which ones use both. That's just going to be something you're going to have to practice with. Unfortunately, there's no easy way, and especially because other languages, I know Spanish, for example, we don't really use gerunds like we do in English. So in many cases in Spanish, we would just use what we call the infinitive or the simple form. So that's a problem. English, we have these things. So guys, all I can say to you is you got to just keep practicing with them, because that's really the only way you're going to be able to use them correctly. Okay, well, we made it through the first activity. Not too bad. All right, so let's go ahead to the next activity, and I think we'll probably have time enough just to do the first one. Now, here's the idea in this activity. So in this activity, we're focusing on prepositions. Now remember, prepositions are those little words, words like on and to and for and in and so on. So the idea is I'm going to go through the article, and basically anybody can use their microphone. You can jump in and tell me what you think the preposition is, the preposition that we need. Okay, so I'm going to start right at the beginning, and if someone wants to jump in and give me the first one, here we go. Students
Are.
In the world.
Oh, you're close. In the world, you're close, but that's not the word we're looking for. I'll give you a hint. Starts with an A.
Are.
No, that's not a preposition.
Oh.
But I'll give you a hint. That is the next letter.
Around.
Around, yes.
Okay.
Students around the world. So remember, in this case, around the world is a fairly common collocation. Students around the world. Okay, so let's continue. By the way, this is from the coronavirus article we read about a month ago. Students around the world still see the United States as one of the best higher education systems.
In.
There we go. Now we got in the world. So maybe that's what you guys were thinking of before. Systems in the world and the American society, even
Of.
When.
Okay, Frank, that's not a preposition, but you're close. I'll give you a hint, Frank. You had the word with the right first letter. This is a pretty common
Where?
collocation. With,
Yes.
there you go. Even with the current problems that we face, this next one's hard.
For.
No? I'll give you a hint. I'll go back and start here. So students see the United States blank and attractive place.
As and.
As, yeah. This is as you notice, this sentence has many, many things to interrupt it. but that's basically the sentence. See the United States as an attractive place. So yes, as, it can also be used as a preposition. Okay. Now, I don't think we'll have time to do the other ones. But again, prepositions in this case, guys, I can see from the activities, this is still something we're struggling with. And I think especially for my Spanish speaking and my Portuguese speaking students, this is very tough because again, English has many, many more prepositions compared to other languages. So I think, again, this is one we're going to have to practice. But again, notice the best way to think about prepositions is thinking about them as groups. So some of you had the right thinking at the beginning. You were thinking in the world. Well, that's true. We often use in the world together. But in this case, it didn't really make sense. Students in the world. Yeah, students, in this case, we might say students around the world. That was a better choice. Okay, well, we don't have time to do the next two, so I'm going to skip ahead to the next activity. Okay, so one of the other tricky activities we talked about were adverbs, and adverbs are often confused with adjectives. So once again, I'm going to start kind of from the top. So Friane, would you like to read number 1 and tell us which one is the correct answer? Okay, so Friane, you want to try number 1?
She's already good.
Yeah, very good. So again, good writer is describing, so good is describing the word writer. Okay, very good. All right, Mariana, how about number 2?
That soup tastes awful.
Very good. Now again, this is one of those tricky situations where we think about the word taste. Taste has 2 meanings. One meaning is talking about the flavor. How does it, what is it? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it awful? We also use the word as an action word. So for example, we taste things with our tongue. So if I taste this, right, it means I'm doing it as a particular action. But in this case, we're talking about the flavor of the soup. So you made the correct answer. All right, Kelly, how about number 3?
You speak Portuguese really fast.
Very good. Now, this is one we mentioned that even English speakers make mistakes with because they often think of the word real. So often you might hear people say, you do that real fast, real good. So in this case, that is not correct. We should use the word really because it's describing the word fast. Okay? All right, let's see. Sonia, how about number 4?
You look really bad. You should go home.
Yes. So, of course, in this case, you are home. Okay, so, but the idea is look has a different meaning too. So again, just like with taste, look can have 2 different meanings. Okay, so group, everybody. What about number 5? Is number 5 the same situation or should I choose a different answer?
Bad.
Badly.
Yeah,
Because
so
the person can see.
yeah, so if you notice in the second part of the sentence, it's talking about how you actually look. You look with your eyes. So that's why it says you should check your glasses. So in this case, the word look is referring to the action of seeing. So Frank, you're correct. You can't see. So in this case, you look badly, like you can't see something. Now, of course, nobody says that, right? Oh, you look badly. Nobody says that. And in fact, I often find it funny because sometimes English speakers will confuse these 2 sentences because they think they should say, oh, like for number 4, they might say, oh, you look really badly. Really? I thought my eyes were fine. So sometimes people make that mistake. They don't think that it's correct to say you look bad. But in this case, it is. All right. How about the last one there? So let's see. Risa, how about number 6?
He needs to think quickly about his situation.
All right. So again, quickly is describing how he thinks. So in this case, guys, one of the things we talked about too were how adverbs and adjectives often get confused. So the real question is, what are they describing? And as we can see, most of the time when we think about the action, if they're describing the action, again, we use the ly. And of course, we have to think about in certain situations like number 2 and number 4, the words taste and look can have different meanings. So again, there are a lot of tricky things about English when it comes to adverbs and adjectives. Okay, guys, our final kind of review activity. I went all the way back to our very first activity for the summer. And if you remember, that was the coronavirus article. So what I did is I just put together a few the first parts of sentences. And the idea is I was borrowing some words from that article. So for example, let's start with number one. And anybody, if you want to jump in and give me how you would finish the sentence. So I wish I could afford to... All right, who's got an answer for this one?
I know tuition.
To pay tuition, okay, at an American university. Yeah, good luck. Anybody else have an answer for number one? Come on, guys, we got some dreams, don't we?
To buy plane tickets to Germany to visit family.
Okay, that's a good way. Are they expensive right now, or is it just in general too expensive for you?
In general, expensive, but right now like 3,000.
Oh my goodness, $3,000? Wow. I think I would probably, you know, just keep Skyping or FaceTime. Anybody else have a dream? Okay, well, I'll give my answer. I wish I could afford to retire. So maybe I could retire to my tiny home. So what do you think? Should I retire to my tiny home?
No,
I could still
I'm not ready for that.
You're not ready for that. Well, okay.
Maybe next year.
Next year. Wait, I'm supposed to wait till you're gone, Mariana? Is that the answer?
Kinda.
Okay. Well, okay, so I'll do it just for you then. Okay. All right. How about
You're so kind.
well, some tells me my wife would probably have an answer too. Okay. All right, so number two, how about this one, guys? When I want to relieve stress, who's got an answer for that one?
I listen to music.
What kind of music do we like, Risa, to relax, to relieve stress?
I like R&B.
Ooh, interesting. R&B, like old school, or got any new recommendations?
Kind of new school, so Usher or Chris Brown or Jason Derulo.
Okay, well, I guess those are kind of newer. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, R&B, all right. Anybody else have any good stress relieving activities?
Count until 10.
So you think that kind of helps calm you down? Just 10? You think 10 is enough?
Yeah, at the moment, it's better than scream with somebody or something.
Okay. I thought maybe you would count to like 100 or something. So I wasn't sure. 10 is good enough. Okay.
I will go to the to the gym to do the exercises or run and also listen good music.
Well, wait a minute. Is the gym open now?
Yep,
Are there any
it
open
is.
gyms?
It
So
is.
have you been going?
Yep, on Monday.
So what do you do? Wear like a shield on your face, and what do you do to? What are the requirements in the gym?
Kind of just only social distance, and that's all. And also cleaning your place
Okay.
pretty well. That's all.
So they're not requiring masks in the gym?
No.
Okay.
Thank God.
Who knows? That might change. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. Okay. All right. So
I'm gonna skip going then.
well, exercise is a good way to relieve stress. I do agree with that. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's try number 3. Now, this is a bigger question here, guys. So I think right now the best way to improve society is. Who's got some recommendations here? What do you think? Any suggestions?
I would say like teaching by your own testimony, like show how to people how you can take care about them using your face mask or washing your hand,
Okay.
being generous, like kindness.
I like
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, kindness to show. Yeah, so is to show kindness to be a good model for other people. Yeah, because I know the whole face mask thing. I mean, some people are just going crazy about this, and it's just a simple thing. But I think some people are perhaps maybe think of it as kind of political. You know, if I wear the mask, then somehow I'm weak. And I don't know. I've just seen so many people posting on Facebook and social media. You know, you hear customers getting angry requiring them to wear the face mask. So I think, Frank, it's really hard. We got to show patience and kindness, and it's hard for people, I think, to accept, and maybe they don't want to. So that's a good point. All right. Anybody else have any recommendations for improving society? Okay. Well, I don't know. I think Frank gave a good answer there. All right. What about the last one? The hardest thing about dealing with this pandemic is what? What's the hardest thing for you?
People.
People.
Staying at home.
Staying home. That can be tough. Yes, that can be tough.
Wearing masks during summer.
Now that's interesting. Yeah, most people were hoping that this whole thing would disappear because of the hot weather, but now, yeah, now you have to wear the mask out in the hot temperatures. So yeah, that's I agree. That's a tough one. Yeah, I think again those are some good ones, but I think definitely staying at home, not being able to see people a lot. But I also think one of the hardest things right now is just having patience, because right now, you know, a lot of states are starting to experience increases, and I think right now a lot of people just don't have patience anymore. You know, this was a very difficult thing, and right now I think a lot of people, they don't want to go back. They don't want to go back and close things again. So excuse me, I don't know. I'm kind of worried about that. Okay, well, guys, we did it. Speaking of learning things, we're here at the end of our lesson here for this evening. Now, I think just about everybody, or at least most of you, have received the link and registered for the fall 2020 session. So again, I just want to remind you that if you have not had a chance to fill out that registration form, but again, I think most of you have in the group. So, but if you are going to be with us here in the fall, please, please, please fill out that registration information. Now, we are not going to make any announcements yet, so probably right at the beginning of August, we will talk about what the schedule is going to look like, and again, we're going to see if we're going to require students to have to come and test. As you can see, that's really the biggest problem right now. We basically make our money here with the government by giving tests and students showing progress on those English tests. But the problem right now is we are not able to do that in a remote way. None of the test makers have a solution that is workable. So at this point, we're just going to do the registration process online, which again, if you've done that already, thank you very much. But the idea is we're going to stay online at least until October. The college right now is just now beginning to figure out what it's going to do. And we feel like it's better just to give the college time to figure out how they're going to do their classes. Now, who knows? Maybe after October, we might come back in person, maybe one day a week, and then do one class online during the week. I don't know. All I can say is we are going to be online until October at the least, and possibly until December. So again, I know for some of you maybe it's not perfect, but I do want to thank everybody for joining us here, because honestly, you know, we all could have just said I give up, and then, you know, for the last 4 months we could have done nothing. So, but we really wanted to make sure we were offering something to the students. So we were glad that you guys could join us here for these few months. I know it's been difficult, and again, we will announce the schedule. And my guess is the schedule is not going to change very much for this class. So, but I will give you guys a chance to give me some more direction of what you guys would like to do for the first fall session. So again, this is our final chat for the summer 2020 session. We're so glad you could join us here. I hope you guys do get a chance to relax for the next few weeks, and classes will begin again. I can tell you that the session itself is going to begin August 17th, but we don't have any information about any other things in terms of testing or schedule, but classes will start again on August 17th. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. In the chat box, I'm going to put the sign-in form, so let me do that now.